Step beyond the headlines and experience the reality of the courtroom. The material you are viewing is entirely unfiltered and unedited. This is raw, documented footage from the front lines of justice, bringing you face to face with the unyielding truth.
Are you accusing me of theft? Say it clearly.
Sir, 100,000 in cash is suspicious.
Suspicious isn't illegal, it's my money. Security, stand by. Pull the full ownership profile, not the branch view, the parent company. 70% owner. Now, who exactly?
The bank lobby was packed just after noon, the kind of controlled chaos that came with lunch hour deposits and hurried withdrawals. The air smelled faintly of toner and polished marble. A digital screen chimed softly as numbers advanced. Pens scraped against clipboards. Somewhere behind the counters, a money counter rattled at a steady mechanical pace. At window 3, a black man in his early 40s stood quietly, hands resting on the edge of the counter. He wore worn brown shoes, dark jeans, and a plain gray jacket that had seen better days. No briefcase, no watch that caught the light. Just a folded withdrawal slip and a calm expression. "I'd like to withdraw $100,000 from my account," he said. The bank teller looked up, then down again. Her fingers froze above the keyboard. She scanned him once more, slower this time, eyes lingering on his clothes, his hands, his face. The smile she had offered the previous customer did not return. "That amount requires additional verification," she said. "That's fine," he replied. "Take whatever steps you need." She asked for his identification. He slid it across the counter. She studied it longer than necessary, then typed his name into the system. Her posture stiffened almost immediately. "Sir, where did these funds come from?" "From my account," he said evenly. She did not smile. "Large withdrawals are unusual," she continued. "We've had issues with fraud." "I'm aware," he said. "That's why I bank here." The teller leaned back slightly, eyes flicking toward her supervisor's glass office, then back to the screen. Her voice dropped, but it carried. "I'm going to need to place a temporary hold." "On what basis?" "Irregular activity." A man in line behind him sighed loudly. A woman to the side pretended to check her phone, but angled it just enough to see. The lobby felt smaller, now tighter. "There's nothing irregular about accessing my own money," the man said. "You're requesting a suspicious amount of cash," the teller replied, her tone sharpening. "I need to protect the bank." "Protect it from what?" "From theft." The word hung in the air, heavy and unmistakable. A few heads turned. The teller straightened, emboldened by the attention. "Sir, if you can't adequately explain this transaction, I'll have to involve security." The man did not raise his voice. He did not step back. He simply looked at her, eyes steady. "I've explained everything required by policy. If you're accusing me of something, I'd like that stated clearly." The teller's jaw tightened. She tapped her keyboard again, harder this time. "Let me get my manager." As she stood, the quiet man noticed the security guard near the door shift his weight. He noticed the camera above the counter, its lens fixed unblinking. What had begun as a routine transaction had crossed into something else, something public, something that would not end quietly. Within minutes, everyone in that lobby would understand just how badly that accusation had missed its mark. The accusation at the counter made sense only if you did not know who the man was. To everyone else in that lobby, he was just another customer. To the bank itself, buried deep inside layers of corporate structure and shareholder records, he was something else entirely. Rewind 25 years. Long before glass towers and balance sheets, before private equity meetings and boardrooms. There was a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat on the west side of Detroit. That was where Daniel Brooks learned how money really worked, not as numbers on a screen, but as survival. His mother cleaned offices at night. His father disappeared early. Rent was paid late more often than on time. Daniel worked wherever someone would hire him. Loading docks, night shifts at warehouses, repair crews that paid cash and asked no questions. He learned to watch, to listen, to stay quiet. People underestimated quiet men. That lesson stayed with him. He taught himself finance the same way. Public library books, old business magazines, court filings and bankruptcy records that showed how companies failed and who profited when they did. While other kids talked about careers, Daniel studied structures. Ownership, control, leverage. By his early 30s, he had started buying distressed commercial properties with pooled capital from friends who trusted him because he never promised fast money. He promised patience. He reinvested everything. No lifestyle upgrades, no visible success. Just growth that compounded quietly. Banks were tools, not symbols to him. He negotiated lines of credit the way others negotiated salaries. Calm, methodical, always prepared to walk away. He never cared how people at the table saw him. Results spoke later. The financial institution where he now stood had crossed his path years earlier during a merger. A regional bank with cash flow problems. Undervalued stock. Weak leadership. Daniel recognized the pattern immediately. Over the next decade, through holding companies and trusts, he acquired controlling interest piece by piece. Not loudly, not publicly, just efficiently. By the time the deal was complete, he owned 70% of the parent entity. He did not sit on the board. He did not attend ribbon cuttings. He appointed professionals and let them work. His name appeared on documents few people at branch level ever saw. That distance was intentional. Power worked best when it did not announce itself. The teller who accused him had never seen his face. Her training taught her to look for signs. Nervousness. Confidence that felt out of place. Requests that did not match appearance. She trusted her instincts because the system had taught her they were protection, not prejudice. She had received complaints before. About tone. About assumptions. Each time management reframed it as vigilance. Better safe than sorry. Those words became permission. Back in the lobby as Daniel waited at the counter, his past and her assumptions were already on a collision course. One built on decades of restraint. The other built on a moment of judgment. Neither of them had said the most important words yet. But the records were already there. And once they were open, there would be no way to close them again. The teller did not return alone. She came back with a branch manager and a security guard whose hand rested too comfortably near his radio. The manager wore a practiced smile that did not reach his eyes, the kind reserved for situations that might become complaints. "Sir, there seems to be an issue with your transaction," the manager said. Daniel nodded. "I'm aware. I'm waiting for it to be explained." The teller stood slightly behind the manager. Now arms crossed, chin lifted. She watched Daniel the way someone watches a problem they believe they have already solved. The manager glanced at the screen, then at Daniel's identification, then back at the screen again. "You're requesting a very large amount of cash," he said. "That raises internal flags." "Flags don't override policy," Daniel replied. "My account is in good standing." The security guard shifted closer. The movement did not go unnoticed. Neither did the sudden quiet in the lobby. Conversations stalled. A woman near the deposit slips stopped writing altogether. A man near the door angled his phone, pretending to scroll. The teller stepped forward again. "We still haven't established the source of these funds." "You have," Daniel said. "Multiple times." Her voice rose slightly. "We need to be sure this isn't an attempt to move stolen money." The word stolen landed hard. This time there was no pretending it hadn't been said. "That's a serious accusation," Daniel replied. "Are you making it officially?" The teller hesitated, then doubled down. "I'm saying this transaction looks suspicious." The manager glanced sideways at her, then back at Daniel. "Sir, perhaps it would be best if you came with us to the office while we sort this out." "Am I being denied service? We're asking for cooperation." Daniel looked around the lobby. At the phones, at the cameras, at the faces pretending not to watch. He had seen this posture before in other industries, other rooms. The quiet pressure to comply so things did not escalate. "I am cooperating," he said calmly. "I'm also documenting everything that's happening right now." The teller scoffed softly. "You're being defensive. I'm being precise." The manager cleared his throat. "Security, please stand by." The guard's hand touched his radio. A murmur ran through the lobby. Someone whispered, "This is wrong." Another voice answered, "He just wants his money." Daniel remained still. He did not raise his voice. He did not step back. He understood something the people around him did not yet see. The moment an accusation becomes public, it creates witnesses. Witnesses change outcomes. The teller mistook his calm for weakness. She leaned toward the manager. "We can't just let anyone walk out with that much cash." "Anyone." The word did its damage quietly. Daniel looked at the manager again. "Before we go anywhere, I want you to pull the full ownership profile on this account and the parent institution. Not the branch view, the ownership." The manager frowned. "That's not necessary." "It is," Daniel said, "and I suggest you do it now." The manager hesitated. Pride weighed against caution. Around them, the lobby waited. The teller's confidence began to crack just slightly as the manager turned back to the terminal and began navigating deeper into the system. Lines of data loaded. Permissions unlocked. A different screen appeared. The manager's eyes narrowed as he read, then widened almost imperceptibly. The escalation had reached its peak. The crowd leaned in without moving. The teller's smile faded. Whatever she had expected to find, this was not it. The next few seconds would determine whether this ended as an embarrassment or as something far more costly. The manager did not look up right away. He stared at the screen longer than necessary, scrolling, clicking, confirming what he was seeing could not be a glitch. The teller leaned closer, impatience creeping back into her posture, unaware that the ground under her confidence was already giving way. "Sir, until this is resolved, we're going to have to pause the transaction," the manager said, still not meeting Daniel's eyes. "Pause implies resumption," Daniel replied. "What you're doing now is denial." The security guard stepped closer, close enough that Daniel could smell the faint trace of cologne and coffee. It was a subtle pressure, a physical reminder of who controlled the space. Several customers shifted uncomfortably. One woman shook her head slowly. A man near the door whispered into his phone. The teller straightened. "At this point," she said, "we have reasonable concern." "Concern is not cause," Daniel said, "and accusation is not procedure." The manager finally looked up. His expression had changed, though he tried to hide it. "Sir, please come with us to the office so we can continue privately." Daniel did not move. "There is nothing private about what just happened. You accused me of theft in front of this room." The word theft echoed in the sudden quiet. The teller opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. Her eyes flicked to the manager, searching for support. "Security," the manager said quietly. "Let's keep this calm." Daniel nodded once. Calm has not been the issue. He glanced deliberately toward the cameras mounted high in the corners of the lobby. The lenses were small, almost invisible, but constant. He knew how long footage was retained. He knew who could request it. He knew how quickly a narrative could change once those records were reviewed. The teller crossed her arms again, a defensive reflex now. "We're just doing our jobs." "Then do them correctly," Daniel replied. The guard cleared his throat. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step back from the counter." Daniel stepped back half a pace, enough to comply, not enough to retreat. Inside, his thoughts were already moving ahead. Incident report. Internal review. Civil liability. He had seen enough cases like this to know how they unfolded once evidence existed. He did not need to threaten. The process would speak for him. The manager glanced at the screen again, then quickly minimized the window as if hiding it from the teller. That movement did not go unnoticed. Her confidence faltered just for a moment, replaced by confusion. "What is it?" she asked sharply. "Nothing yet," the manager replied. "Let me finish." That answer only deepened the tension. The lobby felt frozen in anticipation. Customers no longer pretended not to watch. Phones were fully raised now. The security guard shifted again, less certain. The injustice was complete. Not because Daniel had been removed or detained, but because the assumption had been made out loud and backed by force. A man asking for his own money reduced to a suspect by appearance alone. Daniel spoke one last time, his voice steady. "I will wait. But understand this. Everything from the moment you said theft is on record." The manager swallowed. The teller stared at the floor. The system behind the glass was already preparing to contradict everything she thought she knew. The manager's fingers hovered over the keyboard, then moved again, slower now, deliberate. He expanded the ownership tab he had tried to hide, scrolling past internal codes and subsidiary names most branch employees never touched. The teller leaned forward despite herself, eyes narrowing, as unfamiliar terms filled the screen. "What is that?" she asked. The manager did not answer immediately. He clicked again, drilling deeper, pulling up the controlling interest summary. The color drained from his face in stages. First confusion, then disbelief, then something close to panic. He read the name once, twice, checked the percentage column, refreshed the page as if the system might correct itself. 70%. He sat back slightly as if the chair had shifted under him. The lobby noise faded into a dull hum. For a moment he seemed to forget where he was. "Sir," he said quietly, his voice no longer carrying authority, "may I confirm your full legal name?" "Daniel Brooks." "And you are a majority owner of the holding company that controls this bank." The teller laughed once, sharp and nervous. "That's not possible." The manager turned the screen toward her without a word. She leaned in, scanning fast, then slower. Her mouth opened, then closed. The confidence she had worn like armor cracked completely. She stepped back from the counter as if it had burned her. "That can't be right," she whispered. "It is," the manager said. His voice was flat now. Professional, controlled, afraid. The security guard straightened suddenly, unsure which side of the room he belonged on. Phones in the lobby lifted higher. Someone said, "Oh my God." Another voice, "He owns the bank." Daniel watched them all with the same calm he had carried in. He did not smile. He did not gloat. Power did not require performance. "So let me be clear," he said. "You accused me of theft. In public. While standing inside a building I largely own." The teller's hands trembled. "I didn't know." "Knowledge is not the issue," Daniel replied. "Assumption is." The manager swallowed hard. "Mr. Brooks, on behalf of the bank, I sincerely apologize. This was a misunderstanding, and it will be addressed immediately." Daniel nodded once. Addressed how? The manager hesitated. Internally. Daniel's gaze hardened slightly. No, transparently. Silence settled over the lobby. The teller stared at the floor. The security guard took a step back. The manager understood now that this was no longer a customer service issue. It was a reckoning. Daniel gathered his withdrawal slip from the counter but did not leave. Not yet. He looked directly at the teller. "This moment," he said, "will follow you longer than you expect. Not because of who I am, but because of what you chose to say before you knew." The truth had dropped. Quietly. Completely. And nothing in that branch would ever feel the same again. The manager acted quickly after that. Too quickly. He asked the teller to step into the office. He asked security to stand down. He asked the lobby to excuse the disruption. None of it stopped what had already begun. Within an hour, footage from inside the branch was pulled and preserved. Not erased, not edited, preserved. A customer had filed a formal complaint before Daniel even left the building. Another had uploaded a clip online. It showed only the moment the word theft was spoken, but that was enough. The caption was simple. "Bank accuses black customer of stealing his own money." The story moved fast. Faster than internal memos. Faster than damage control. By the next morning, the bank's communications team was already in crisis mode. Calls came in from regulators, from advocacy groups, from investors who did not like surprises. Daniel did not post anything. He did not need to. His attorneys filed a notice of intent to pursue civil action, citing discrimination, defamation, and denial of service. The documentation was thorough. Timestamps, policy language, employee statements, footage. An internal investigation followed within days. The teller was placed on leave pending review. Her personnel file was examined closely for the first time. Prior complaints that had been brushed aside resurfaced, patterns reframed now that the outcome could no longer be ignored. The branch manager was disciplined for failing to intervene sooner. Training protocols were rewritten. Mandatory bias reviews were announced publicly. None of it happened quietly. The lawsuit settled before trial. The amount was not disclosed, but it was enough to trigger a shareholder briefing and a public apology from the bank's executive leadership. Policies changed, careers ended, reputations shifted. Daniel declined compensation beyond policy reforms and personnel accountability. He made that clear in writing. This was never about the money. This was about exposure. The teller did not return to the branch. The security guard transferred. The manager requested reassignment. Consequences moved outward in ripples, touching people who had assumed this would blow over. In the months that followed, the incident became a case study, used in corporate training, discussed in compliance seminars, cited in conversations that began with, "Remember what happened at that branch." Daniel continued his work as he always had, quietly, deliberately. The only difference was that his anonymity was gone, and with it the illusion that bias only mattered when the wrong person was watching. Justice did not arrive as a dramatic confrontation. It arrived through process, through records, through accountability that could not be dismissed as misunderstanding. And it arrived because someone chose not to walk away when silence would have been easier. The final lesson of what happened inside that bank branch does not sit in the shock of the revelation or the size of the settlement. It lives in the rules that were ignored, the bias that was normalized, and the quiet choices that turned a routine transaction into a civil rights failure. From a legal standpoint, banks are not allowed discretion when it comes to equal access to services. Federal and state laws prohibit discrimination based on race in any financial transaction. Suspicion must be grounded in objective indicators, not appearance tone or comfort level. Accusing a customer of theft without evidence is not vigilance. It is defamation. Denying service without cause is not protection. It is unlawful exclusion. What happened crossed that line the moment the accusation was spoken out loud. Once that word entered the public space, the bank assumed legal risk it could not undo. Cameras, witnesses, and internal records transformed opinion into evidence. The system did the rest. There is also a psychological truth that explains why this unfolded the way it did. Bias often disguises itself as intuition. Employees are trained to trust their instincts, but rarely trained to question where those instincts come from. When authority is reinforced and complaints go unchallenged, assumptions become habits. Habits become policy in practice even when policy on paper says otherwise. For ordinary people, the practical lessons matter. Stay calm. Ask clear questions. Do not accept vague accusations. Names matter. Words matter. Cameras matter. Documentation matters. You do not need to escalate to protect yourself. You need to remain precise and visible. Daniel Brooks did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. He did not reveal who he was until the system forced the truth out on its own. That restraint mattered. It allowed the focus to stay where it belonged, on the conduct, not the reaction. This story resonates because Daniel was not supposed to be challenged. He was not supposed to be doubted. Yet he was. That is the point. Bias does not stop at wealth ownership or power. It only stops when it is confronted by records and accountability. Most people do not own 70% of a bank. That is precisely why this moment matters. Because the harm happened before the revelation, not after. Because the system behaved the same way it would have if he had been anyone else. Justice in this case did not arrive through outrage. It arrived through process, through law, through consequences that could not be explained away as misunderstanding. The question left behind is simple. How many similar moments end differently because no one ever learns who was standing at the counter?
In our relentless pursuit of the truth, we refuse to look away. We are committed to holding power to account, because at the end of the day, the records don't lie. Thank you for watching our channel.